Welcome back to the podcast. And also don't forget to subscribe. And here we go. We're about to jump in on 3, 2, 1, go. So tell the people a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background and what you're currently doing and all that good stuff.
Yeah, awesome. So my name's Parker. I live in College Station, Texas right now, which is hilarious to me. I am a wife and a mom. I work in a forensic psychiatric facility.
That sounds so cool. That could
we
need to have you back on for just that. That stuff intrigues me so much.
It would be like I could go on for days probably. Actually, it's super fun. I love my job. I'm a person living in recovery, so I spend a lot of time like with mental health advocacy work. I think it's so important. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Something that I thought was really interesting about you is the MMA side of things. And how did you get into that? Like, what pushed you to do that?
I know it's so funny. I feel like it's super cliche, but I kind of like, I grew up really rough. And so I really was just like tired of being assaulted is kind of the joke that I always make, but finding MMA was huge. And like, there was a fight back in 2009. This is so cheesy. Okay. So I'm warning you now, but I remember watching the Clay Guida versus Diego Sanchez, like UFC fight night. If you have not seen that fight, like you have to watch it. It's just, you're going to want to like toss yourself into cage fighting. And like watching these two guys, I was just like, oh my God, I want to be that guy. Like they're just bruised and bloodied and battered and just like keep getting knocked down, but you keep getting up. And it was just like the coolest thing ever. And so I always had this like pipe dream in the back of my head of like, I want to be able to like defend myself and be like the strong person in the room. And then MMA kind of fell in and it was like this missing puzzle piece in my life. It was so awesome. Cardio is not really my thing. Like I always tell people, if you see me running, like you should run because like something is probably wrong, but you get like, you have to in the MMA world, or else like, you will literally get gassed. And so it is like, that challenge of the cardio plus like the power and the fight IQ and paying attention to like what someone else is doing on that level is just, it's challenging. I love it.
Were you into any other type of working out before you were fighting?
That was really the first thing I ever really did. When I was a kid, my parents tried to like sign me up for T-ball one time when I was like 6. And I just like looked at everyone and kind of like rolled my eyes and was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. And I was never like a team sport person. I was kind of like the weird, like, artsy goth kid in school. And so growing up, and I became an addict at a really young age. And so I was in a lot of like hospitals and rehab and like treatment facilities or whatever. And they try really hard to get, folks who are struggling with addiction really moving because of that like holistic, like your physical health impacts so much of your mental health. And so it was always like kind of around, but nothing I was really interested in. To the point where like I didn't pay attention to nutrition. Like I would go days at a time without even drinking water, because like who cares? Like Dr. Pepper and Red Bull do the same thing, right? And now like finding that like missing puzzle piece, it's just like you kind of have this awakening of like, number one, this is amazing. And number two, realizing how actually unhealthy I was shocking. Which you would think is like an automatic. If not drinking water, you're pretty unhealthy. But yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think some people, you just get so stuck in your habits that you don't really understand, and somebody can tell you, oh, that's not healthy. But like until you really process it internally that, oh, that's really not healthy, it doesn't matter.
It's so true. And that's, I always like with the folks that I work with, the patients that are currently hospitalized, I'm like, I can tell you all you want, but until you get there yourself, like to your point, it just doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just curious about when you decided to start training, what was that first couple days or first couple sessions like?
Terrifying. I had to really get myself pumped up. So I'm like, oh, I want to do this so bad. And it's one thing saying that while you're watching like two of like the best of all time, greatest UFC champs ever. And they make it look so easy. And you're like, I could totally do that. And then I remember like the first day, like showing up to the gym just for a tour, like not even going to train. And I remember like feeling so intimidated on a level that like, I don't think I've ever felt ever. And so going in for the first time was really scary. And there's definitely that fear of like, and this sounds so dumb, right? But like, what if I get punched in the face? And it's like, oh.
And you're like, wait, I'm actually maybe signing up for that, but like, what if?
Yes, I know. And you're like, that's exactly what you were signing up for.
Right.
But there was definitely like just so much fear. And luckily, in my experience, folks who are already in an MMA gym are just like the most welcoming. Like, they know you're not perfect at this or even like know what you're doing at all. That's why you came here. And so luckily, I've had some really cool people along the way to like help me like stay motivated and challenge me and really teach me a lot. But the first few times, it's like really scary. And even moving, which I did recently, I started in a new gym, and even like showing up there for the first time is always a little bit like scary.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine like showing up, like having the skill set and then showing up to a new place. And then you got to like feel everybody out, make sure you don't like roll with the wrong person or like, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to figure people out before you kind of, cause it's when you're fighting with somebody, you don't want to, even if it's just like a training session, you don't want to like push the wrong person's buttons or like, you have to figure out what that person's buttons are. And like, that would be, I can't imagine like just going in there and being like, you know, hey, I'm new, and do you want to fight now? Like,
yeah, and it's like, how do you say without like sounding really just embarrassing yourself of like, hey, so like, don't completely kill me, like, don't go easy on me because I'm a girl, but like, please be careful.
Yeah, that actually feeds into a question I have. What is it like being a girl in this world that you're in fighting, and walking into gyms?
Glad you asked this question.
Do you train in a gym that is like co-ed, or is it all girls? What's it like?
So my gym is co-ed, and every gym I've been into actually is always co-ed. And there's essentially like maybe 2 or 3, 4, if you're super lucky, girls who fight in that gym. And of course, you're at all different skill levels. And it's so it can be tough for sure. What's interesting is when you tell someone just kind of like casually, like, oh yeah, I do MMA, or recently I get like a lot of DMs of guys being like super creepy.
Of course.
And they're like, yeah, right, like typical, right? And they're like, hey, so you want to put me in a triangle chokehold? Or like I've been like propositioned to like beat people up for money in this like really creepy sexual way. Yeah, it's just like I've kind of heard it all in that regard. But the cool thing is like I've never actually gone into an MMA gym where like some dudes try to like sexualize grappling or anything. And then as like a fan of MMA, and I watch a lot of UFC fights. I'm kind of like a UFC dork. And so I'll go out to a bar and watch the fights or whatever. And sometimes I'll just like go by myself and sit at the bar and watch, pre-COVID, obviously. And I'll have dudes come over and try to like explain fighting to me, and they'll be like, hey, so Conor McGregor isn't even on this card. Are you sure you want to watch it? And I'm just like, I'm good, thank you. And they're like, so this fighter is southpaw. Let me explain to you what that means.
Oh my
like,
God.
I'm good, thank you. So it's interesting for sure. And I'm just glad that like within our sport, I've never had any sort of like weird experience or anything. Like when I come into a gym, I don't ever feel like lesser than or judged as a female, which is super rad.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think that like that's super important in order to, like be at your max potential to feel comfortable as a woman and would you say it's predominantly male, or would you say it's
100%.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't want to speak wrong, because I mean, it could be more women and we just don't see the women in it, Yeah.
And I think there is definitely like a component of that for sure. And I think it's been cool to see like people like Ronda Rousey, right? And like all these like Chris Cyborg who've really been able to come in and make a name in the biggest stage really that you could be on in the MMA world. But even in like my local gym, like I said, I mean, we have a couple of girls in there who like are just some of the like most rad, badass chicks that are so cool. And I'm like, oh, I love that. I'm all about like that girl power,
Yeah, and that's like the ultimate girl power when you see other girls doing a predominantly male thing.
Yes, it's awesome.
Yeah, so is that the only way you train, or do you hit the gym and like lift weights and do other stuff to go with that?
I definitely do I think a lot more lifting than the average person that fights. I hear a lot of my friends who fight, like they actually kind of like give me a hard time, make fun of me because I like go into the gym and I still lift and everything like that. And of course I have to like be my cute little like gym shark outfit when I get there. And they're like, what are you doing? But I love lifting, and that's kind of something that I've recently found out that I really enjoy, like within the last 2 years or so. And so it definitely helps, that like power piece of things. And there's a lot of the less sexy parts of training in MMA, like the speed and agility pieces of things, which I'm just not naturally gifted in. So I have to really work at it. And things like flexibility and balance, it's you really have to be a well-rounded athlete in a sport like MMA. And so cardio, again, though, is the one thing, I just can't get on a treadmill. I don't know. I'm not going to go for a run. I'm just not going to do that. No, that sounds awful.
Yeah, I can't do any form of cardio without being okay, it's 2 minutes in, but I feel like I'm 15 minutes in.
Yeah, it's amazing how slow time goes.
Yeah. I mean, and I've tried everything. I've tried watching my favorite show. I've tried podcast, music. I can't. I don't know how cross-country runners do it, really.
I don't know. I would I just don't have, maybe I'm just too ADD for that. I don't know, something, but it's not my forte. I do watch UFC fights. I'll try to if this dude can get punched 7 times and keep going, you can walk on a treadmill at speed 6. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, seriously. So you don't have to answer this if you're not comfortable with it, but would you say fighting was part of your recovery? So you mentioned recovery, and I just kind of drew my mind to that this your a huge form?
Yes, it's a huge part of my recovery. And, I tell people all the time, when I was a kid, I was such a scrapper. When I was in the hospital system, I would fight the staff there all the time. I ended up in restraints constantly because of that. And so it's okay, you have this, we'll call it energy. So where do you put that? And so finding MMA, it was this life turning, aha moment for me. And it's been probably the biggest part of my recovery, in all honesty. I've considered I've tried to bring MMA a little bit into my hospital. And of course the staff is you are not teaching forensic psych patients how to put us in a chokehold. So that's going to be a no-go, but finding that has just been so huge. And when I recently had a daughter, and when I was pregnant, as it turns out, it's super not recommended to get punched while you're pregnant.
Oh, weird.
Who knew? And so, yeah, you would think that just kind of comes along with it. And so it was a really scary moment of oh my God, what do I do when I don't have this coping skill? And I try to negotiate with my doctor. I was what if I just get punched from the neck up? And he was what is wrong with you? No. And so it was a matter of finding those other things. And I think that's where lifting weights became kind of my substitute, and how I figured out oh, actually this is all right. I kind of dig lifting heavy stuff. That's cool. But it's been that level of discipline that MMA teaches you, the self-control, the respect of your body and those around you. And it's essentially all the same principles that apply to recovery.
Yeah, that's really cool that something so violent has that self-discipline and those mental gains that come along with doing it, it's,
without being violent to yourself or to others. Do you get what I'm saying?
It's controlled violence. Almost.
Yeah.
And consensual violence, which is also very important.
Yeah.
You also said something that was very shocking to me, that some people that were fighting with you thought it was weird that you would train out, go lift weights. And in a sport where that seems like it would be such an advantage to be a little bit stronger and more powerful and just add some speed, it seems weird that it was a weird thing to do. To me, it was
it would make sense.
It would make sense to build your own body to become a better fighter.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think, and for us, we fight in weight classes. And so as you're putting on that muscle, you do risk moving up a weight class. You do risk being a little bit slower, or, the bulkier that you are. And typically I will either fight at 115 or 120. And so I do have to be super conscientious of that, because obviously muscle weighs more than that. And so, you don't want to lose the ability to fight where you want to fight. And so I think sometimes that is the bigger hesitation. And I mean, at the same time, I'm seeing fighters and like even currently some of our UFC like big dogs, like people like Justin Gaethje or whatever, who are just not like the biggest looking dude, where you're just like, oh my God, you're terrifying because you don't look strong at all necessarily, but like, and I'm even like hesitant to say that Justin Gaethje isn't strong, but like you can rumble and throw down and it's awesome.
Yeah. It's really cool. You mentioned the balance and the flexibility and stuff like that go along with it. And somebody that tries to just start and go into it that doesn't realize how much just balance and like body awareness that it does take. Do you do anything specific to kind of, other than lifting weights, to kind of become more flexible and build your balance?
Yeah, I do a lot of Muay Thai. I'm definitely more of a striker when it comes to my fighting style. And so I had a coach who would make me throw a kick and he would catch it. So I was on one leg and then he would just drag me around the octagon until like I essentially fell and couldn't do it anymore. And the first few times I was like, you're insane. This is like so unrealistic. And then the first time I was in like a competitive fight, I was like, oh my God, that actually super came in handy. So things like that, things like an agility ladder, which I hate literally almost as much as I hate cardio because it's so challenging, but just getting that footwork done, you know, it can really help when you're in it. It becomes second nature and then you don't have to think so much about that part of things, you know, and stretching and rolling out and all those things is so important, you know. And I've even gone to the extremes of trying yoga, which I always kind of like laughed and was like, oh, yeah, you do yoga, that's cool. And then I tried it and I was like, oh my God, this is so hard.
It is. I picked it up during quarantine. I was like, I can't even do tree pose. Like I can't.
Yeah, no, like I can't do any of it. It's just so
challenging. Like Warrior One, when you're basically just in a super stretched lunge, I struggle. Like I'm like, oh God, how do people do this? How do you lift your whole body with just like a hand? Like,
yeah, and then they meditate while they're doing it.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, no. So yeah, but I do try to really work on that, you know, the agility and the flexibility and that kind of stuff too.
So since there are so many components to fighting, do you have like a workout split? Like I know like I do legs on Monday, you know, biceps and back on Tuesday. Like do you have a certain split of this day I'm going to focus on flexibility, this day I'm going to focus on footwork, this day I'm going to focus on strength type of thing?
Yeah, I definitely have to be very strategic when I set my workouts up for the week. And like I learned the hard way, don't do legs the day that you have Muay Thai. Like, you know, it's just little things like that. And so I always split cardio and lifting. I don't ever do those things together. And so before the MMA gyms were back open and everything, I would like go walk on a Stairmaster for 45 minutes in the morning as my cardio. And then I would go lift in the afternoons or whatever. And so now I've had to start like, okay, I can do Muay Thai on this day. Maybe we can throw in some like grappling on this day, or depending on what I'm lifting. And so I kind of set my workout schedule up very similarly. But like I have legs on this day, and on the day I do legs, I'll make sure to like do a little agility, a little mobility work, a little, you know, whatever the case is. And I'm really big on listening to your body. Like I would much rather kind of work out organically based on how I feel versus sticking to like a very strict regimen, because I just feel like
right,
I can really easily hurt myself otherwise. Or if you're not listening to your body's signals, like, are you really being beneficial, or, you know, whatever. I know a lot of people have varying opinions on those kinds of things, but I'm just really big on like, what does my body feel like I need to do today, or whatever the case is.
Yeah, I agree. I like to set my schedule, but, you know, if I work legs on Monday and Thursday comes around and my legs, like, just aren't feeling it, I'm not going to do it. Like, there's just no point in pushing your body through an uncomfortable workout, because you're going to be uncomfortable for even longer.
Exactly. And I was really guilty of that for a really long time, like not taking rest days. It's just not good for you, man. It's just not good for you.
So do you do 2 workouts a day? So you do like your fighting workout and then your cardio or your lifting type of workout?
Yeah, I do. And I try to do that like 5 or 6 days a week. And not to say that I fight all those days. You know, it may be, like I said, doing 45 minutes on a Stairmaster, complaining the entire time, but knocking that out as like my version of cardio. And then I'll kind of split up that lifting. And I see people who do it like all together, and then you're just at the gym for like essentially 3 hours, and I'm like all at the same time. And I can't do that.
I just want to like say that you're amazing for being a mom, a wife, and doing like 2 workouts a day. Like, and I mean, I'm assuming you have to be fueling your body like healthily. You're not going to McDonald's, you know, like props to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It's one of those things where I feel like we can either like make all those excuses, right? Like I don't have time, or I don't have this, or I don't have that, or whatever. It's like, or you can just like do it.
Right. You can sit and make excuses for 30 minutes a day, or you can just do the dang thing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for the people listening, just know that if she can do 2 workouts, be a mom, take care of herself, because I mean, you're always in recovery, you know, no matter how long you've been out, you're still in recovery for the rest of your life, really. So,
exactly.
I mean, you're taking care of yourself, your husband, your daughter. Is it a girl or a boy?
I have 2 girls. Yeah.
Okay. I thought I saw a girl on your Instagram.
Yeah.
And then you're fighting. Like, I mean, there's just, like you said, no excuse for it. What you want to happen, you got to make time for.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have to like prioritize those things and put yourself first, you know, I think above all else.
Yeah. I think a big thing with that is just finding which is a very cliche thing to say, but finding your why and finding your motivation and understanding why you're doing something can push you even when you're like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed, or oh, I'm feeling a little sore. Oh, I'm hungry. I want to eat instead of go. Or, you know, it's finding that deeper meaning behind why you're trying to stay healthy that really makes it kind of a lifelong habit.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's also helpful. Like my husband is super supportive, and he's also like, he does bodybuilding and plays hockey. And so he also like sees the importance of doing those things. And so it's really helpful. I think otherwise I would probably just be even crazier than I already am.
Yeah, that is cool when you find somebody that can appreciate all the work you have to put in and not be like, oh, God, you have to be away again tonight. Like,
yeah,
you know, they don't approach it with that mindset. They understand it.
I heard someone at the gym recently, and he was like talking to my husband, and I was like secretly trying to make friends with his wife. And I was like, hey, so does your wife like to work out? Like, I'm like, you know, it's hard when you're like a mom and you're older to like make friends. And so I was like trying to like sneakily make friends with his wife. And he was like, no, she doesn't work out. In fact, she's actually mad at me because like, you know, I spend too much time at the gym. And I was just like, oh man, I really can't relate to that. Thank God. Like, yeah, it's a bummer.
How old are your daughters?
I have an 11-year-old and I have a 14-month-old. Definitely like preteen drama.
Oh yeah, like, you have preteen and then toddler. Oh gosh, good luck. So working out is your me time for sure.
It really is. Yes.
So has your 11-year-old like seen you fight? Like I'm interested on her view. Like what does she think about you being like in the ring? Like what does she think of all that?
She's not a fan.
Really?
The first time, and like really ignorantly, I didn't really think about it. Like, I don't know how. Like, I work in psych. But the very first time, she's like, oh, yeah, I want to go see it. So she came up to the gym with me. And the first time, like, I got hit, she was like, don't you hit my mom! Like, she was really vocal about it. And I was like, oh, my God. And so now she does not go with me. She, like, I come home and I have, like, black eyes or I have, you know, whatever. And she's like, don't tell me. Just don't tell me. And so I've asked her if they have kids classes where I train. And I was like, would you be interested in doing it? And she's like, no.
That's so funny.
She's more of like a gamer anime kid. So she's like, no, that's stupid.
That's interesting. I'm surprised, like, just being brought up around it, you know, it doesn't make her a little less, like, intimidated by it.
Yeah, which, like, a part of me, I'm like, I'm glad you don't want to fight people, I guess.
Yeah.
In certain ways, so it is.
Maybe when, like, she gets to a point in life where she's, like, angry at someone, she'll know that she can take it there rather than out on the person.
Yes, exactly. She knows she has that outlet.
Yeah. Or she can just fight you. You guys can productively fight, you know?
There you go. Like, rock taco style, maybe.
Yeah.
How did you stay up with it during COVID before the gym started opening back up? What was the method there?
It was really hard, actually. I tried to do like these at home like shadow boxing things, and turns out I don't like that at all. I would ask my husband, like, can I punch you? Like, how does this work? You know, I considered like putting us in serious debt and getting just like punching bags and, you know, making my living room like a dojo or something. I did not do that. So really, I just stuck to like lifting and really tried to work on like my flexibility and the mobility stuff. Because as I've gotten older, my body hurts in areas that I didn't know hurt, but like, who has knee pain? Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
And so I've really just tried to like shift the focus onto those kinds of things and just accept the fact that when everything opened back up, I was just going to be a little rusty.
Yeah. Did you find yourself, even though maybe you were a little rusty, did you find yourself more capable with your body, or maybe a little bit better with your body, or stronger, something like that when you went back in?
Yeah, I really did, actually. And I kind of thought that was something I was just telling myself to make myself feel better. But then once I was able to get back in there, it was like, oh, like I could feel the power that I really had, that I felt like I didn't necessarily have before. Yeah. And even last week I was like sparring with somebody who was he was a beast. He was awesome. And I threw a right leg and he was like, oh, you got some power behind that kick. And so seeing someone like so much bigger than me be like, oh, wow. I was like, yeah, like it was awesome, you know? So I think it actually paid off to do it that way for sure.
Yeah. I think during quarantine, didn't have much to lift, like, you know, only had some 10 and 12 pound dumbbells, but like you got to go back to the basics. You know, you got to humble yourself and be like, okay, this is where this move can be improved, and it's going to improve this and this. Like if I just work on something as simple as balance and posture and flexibility, it's really going to pay off in the heavy lifts I need to do or whatever it may be.
It totally is. And I think that's one of the things, like humility and like really humbling yourself is something MMA has really taught me that I definitely was lacking. And like getting punched in the face in front of a bunch of people will super humble you. You know, like that'll do it. Yeah. And so I think you're right. I think like going back to the basics is just so important.
What was your reaction when you first got
That's what I was about to ask.
What was your reaction to that? How did you react?
I want you to, like, can you explain your emotions going in, when you got hit, leaving, like, just the whole first fight you ever did? Like, how did you feel?
Yes. So, like, I wanted to, like, really psych myself up, right? Like, I got this. Like, oh, of course I'm going to win this fight. Like, duh, you know? But then that, like, cage door closes, and I was just like, no, I'm good. Thank you. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I changed my mind. And then that's obviously not an option. And so you just keep going. And it was really cool because once you are like engaged with that person, you kind of just go into that headspace of like, I can do this. I got to do this, you know? And I'm really big on like mental, like self-talk and all of those things. And so really like, it kind of got weirdly zen and kind of like a weird, like I felt like I was kind of in the clouds, and it was almost an out-of-body experience the very first time. And then I got punched in the face.
And then you're like, hello, I'm back.
Yeah, and then it was like there were no more clouds. It was just like fire and kids, you know. And it kind of like initially stunned me, but I kept going. And I don't even think I realized the first time that I kept going. Because for me, I almost felt like I just froze. Like I just paused completely. And as someone who has a really traumatic background, I've had a lot of abuse in my past, I was really scared. I was just going to like feel that and then like fall to the ground in the fetal position. And it was so cool that that's not what happened. Yeah. And so getting through, and then it's like you get through a round and you have essentially 30 seconds to like really just catch your breath. I kept saying like my only goal is to just make it through, like not get completely knocked out or like, you know, murdered. And that would be like the ultimate win for me. So it was really cool. And then finishing like after the fight was over was probably the coolest moment of all. Like shaking someone's hand and being like, dude, you are amazing. Like you just knocked me around. And it was a really cool feeling, and having the support, you know, from my gym and the rest of my team. You almost feel like you've proven yourself a little bit, but proving to myself that, okay, I got this, you know, it was just such a cool feeling. But the adrenaline is crazy.
So does the adrenaline keep you from like feeling the pain of like getting punched?
100%.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I
Most
don't know
of the
how we
time-
keep going. Like,
Yeah, you don't even realize it. Like there's times where I'm like, I saw blood on the mat. Am I bleeding? Are you bleeding? Like what's even going on? Or like the worst injuries I've had were ones that really didn't hurt me at all. Like I didn't know I had a black eye, or I didn't know that I was going to have like a busted up face in any capacity, because I just didn't really feel it.
You were talking about when you got done with your fight and you kind of went over and was like, you know, you're a good fighter, all this other stuff. Do you think that being a woman, do you think that that comes more naturally to women fighters, whereas men might be more like, you know, not really standoffish, but more hard? It's harder for them to be like accepting of someone else being better than them in a way.
You know, I kind of seen it both ways, in all honesty. Like, I think when you are competing, you really give it your all, right? Like, whatever that is for you that day, like, you really do give it your all. And there's definitely, like, that macho dude, like, well, they'll kind of argue with the ref after the fact of, like, I didn't lose that fight. It's like, bro, you brutally lost that fight. Like, I'm not a ref, but, like, you did not. And so I think there may be some of that, especially I think because we have fewer women in this sport, there may just be like a little bit more of like the automatic respect, if that makes sense. MMA is really big on that respect piece of things. It's like one of our core values, and it's something like you will hear your coach talk about all the time. Like you respect your gym, you respect the equipment, you respect each other, like you respect the sport as a whole. And I think a lot of that is just so ingrained in us as fighters that you kind of got to check your ego at the door. Ego does not get you far in any sport, in my opinion,
yeah.
but particularly here, you know.
Yeah, and especially where somebody can physically show you, you know. It's like you can talk all you want and like have that attitude, but if someone's going to check you on it, you can't really talk anything after that, you know.
Yeah, no. And it's like you either won or you didn't.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
in between, you know.
How would you see your life playing out if it wasn't for you getting into MMA?
Oh man, you know, I really was down like a really bad path in my life for a really long time. I had a lot of trauma that I just didn't deal with. And I was like, oh, if you just suppress it and, you know, pretend like it didn't happen, and it's like it didn't, which as it turns out, in case anyone's considering going that route, I don't recommend it. It does not work. And so I had my oldest daughter when I was really young, and that really did change everything, right? It was like, okay, now this whole other person is I'm responsible for and relies on me for everything. And so my whole life then became, I'm someone's mom. And it's really easy to just like lose yourself. And still I wasn't holding myself accountable in my own recovery. And I was almost using this like newfound life as a distraction of sorts from dealing with that stuff. And one thing that is really important to me that I teach my kids is like, self-care is not selfish. Being, you know, putting yourself first is exactly what you should be doing, because I can't be a mom or a wife or a fighter, or I can't be anything if my recovery isn't completely in check. And so finding that time, like you were saying before, finding those, you know, having that real time with yourself, having that time really in your own brain and dealing with your own stuff, it was huge. I think had I not really found MMA, I don't think I would be taking care of myself the way that I do now. You know, when I say like I was going days without drinking water, like I was hospitalized more than once due to dehydration. Like walking down the street, I literally just like passed out and had like a $1,200 essentially cup of water, which was a bag of saline, you know, because I just was not taking care of myself. It wasn't a priority for me at all. And finding MMA and going into like really, it's a lifestyle, you know, you start to really pay attention to all of those things. It was a very tangible way for me to be able to say, I did good today. Like I did something that was really, really great today. It's been huge in my world.
Yeah, sounds like it has. And it's interesting that you say it's a lifestyle, because I think it's among, you know, a few things that you have to do it as a lifestyle. You know, you can go out there and play pick up basketball or, play tennis or play whatever it might be. But you don't really have to like do much for that. You can go do it and you can have fun and you can leave and not think about it and whatever.
Yeah.
But like when you commit to doing, MMA or any other type of kind of thing that takes that type of commitment, you really do have to almost make it a lifestyle to where you're building core values and you're building character and mental strength and all this other stuff that goes along with it. It's kind of a cool thing, and it's not like it's the only thing that is like that, but it's definitely among a few things that are like that.
Yeah. It really tests that like mind over matter. Like it really puts that into perspective in a way for me that it's just been monumental in my life.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I said, I work full time. I'm a mom, which like they insist on eating 3 times a day, every single day, and like making me do their laundry and things. And you're a wife, and that's a full-time job within itself. And recovery, I tell people all the time, is 100% a full-time 24/7 job. And then I add this on top of it. So
yeah. Is part of that almost just like, let me stay busy, but stay busy with something that is good? Is that maybe part of it too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's really important. Like I have to occupy my time. I have to, otherwise it's so easy to sit there and get caught in that like, oh, woe is me, and why did these things happen to me? And had this not happened, maybe I wouldn't have started using, or I wouldn't have done, X, Y, or Z. And it's like, hey man, the past is the past. Like now you got to build, and you got to focus on the here and the now, and really focus on what you want your future to look like. And so for me, that like constant go is the only way I sleep at night.
Do you have any tips for people in recovery? Like just like 2 or 3 things maybe that worked for you? And I know recovery is not, obviously one size fits all, but
right.
Working with like within that realm too, helping other people through their recovery. What is something that you notice, like a couple things I said, that kind of helps, or that somebody should try at least? It's not guaranteed to work for them, but you see pretty good success rates.
Yeah, I think number one, remembering that recovery is not linear. Like that's something I wish that someone would have told me in the very beginning of my recovery journey, because you're still going to have bad days. Like I've been in recovery now for 14 years, and that doesn't mean I don't still have a hard time, or I don't still struggle. And I think a lot of times in recovery, we like to like almost romanticize it in a way, like it's all rainbows and butterflies because you're alive and you're still eating. And that's great, but it's okay to still have a hard time. It's okay to still, take a day. If you need to take time for yourself, do that. Being open and honest about your recovery, I think is huge, and it's so important. For years, I did not talk about the fact that I was a person living in recovery. I really compartmentalized and just kind of pretended like that part of my life never happened. I was a mortgage broker at the time. I was living like almost a fake life, like almost this like massive facade. I didn't tell people I was in therapy or that I took medication or anything like that. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized what a disservice I was doing to our community by not saying, look, you can go through all of that. You can be hospitalized or go through, whatever that looks like for you, and you can come out on the other side. And so share your story with people, talk to people, connect to others in the recovery community. And I think really that self-care piece is so important. And I feel like we talk about that a lot, and we're like, oh, self-care, but truly making that a priority. And it's so easy for us to tell other people, like, you should take care of yourself, or like, yo, if you need to take a mental health day, like take the mental health day. If you need to do something and just clear your head or whatever the case is, do that. Ask for help. I've lost a lot of people along the way, and I've seen other people who weren't able to make it, on this side of recovery. And I would have done anything, to help bring those people out of that. So don't ever feel like you're a burden or be embarrassed of those struggles, because you don't know who you can help along the way by saying like, man, I'm having a hard time,
I have one more question, which it's definitely not maybe as important as that, but if somebody's looking to maybe get into MMA, what's your one piece of advice for that person?
Just do it. Like, don't allow fear to hold you back. Try it. I literally have never been in a more welcoming environment than an MMA gym. We're so stoked when like new people come in because we're like, oh, our community is growing, you know? And so a lot of that like fear, you're totally making up in your head. And so like, just give it a shot. Most gyms will let you kind of come in and at least like try a couple of classes or do like a week or a month or whatever free. But just come in and try it. Don't be scared. Don't be scared of looking dumb was kind of my like fear of like, why don't I come in here and just like, what is this girl doing? Like, why are you even here? You know, like just go for it, do it. Come in and just tell like your coach and your team, or like if you're coming into a class, like, hey, I've never done this before. And it's amazing how many people will come and just like help you. And like the support is so cool. You kind of have this own little like community and village behind you. It's awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you guys so much. Good luck with everything.
Thank you. You too.
All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
You too.